while I'm waiting for it to light up, I might just mention, Michael, you're talking about the curator's daydream or something about finding an undiscovered work of art. I'm wondering whether, when I'm gone, my children will discover in a drawer in the study a rolled up bit of celluloid from an overhead projector. A number of years ago, I got Bruce Petty to speak at a high school certificate seminar, and he always speaks while he's drawing, and so he drew on the overhead projector and then just kept rolling it as he needed some more. And of course, when the thing finished and everyone was sort of shaking his hands and talking to him, I was going. So I'm still trying to work out how I can display it, because of course, you know, it's like freeze, I suppose, on top of the wall or something. And of course, it's done with dry erase pen, so I'm a bit scared of what will happen to it if I touch it. Okay, so here we go. Now, I'm not actually a time traveller from the future, and many predictions about the future of technology have been spectacularly off the mark. I forgot to actually research who actually said this, but apparently someone once said the total market for computers in the world should be about 3. That's probably about all we need. And also Bill Gates famously said, and I'm probably paraphrasing here, the web is just a passing fad, and Microsoft kind of almost missed the boat there with the web and with the internet in general. So, despite the fact that I'm not actually a visitor from the future, I'm going to do my best to extrapolate from recent trends into the future, perhaps the next 5 to 10 years, because of course the further into the future you go, the more wobbly your predictions become. And rather just list them or rank them according to my idea of their relative probabilities, I thought I'd actually plot them. This is from I am from an art background, but I also have this kind of hankering for maths and science and so on. You know, in another life I could have ended up being in a different career altogether. So I've decided to plot them according to probability and desirability. Desirability, well, of course, that's my desirability, what I reckon is a good idea. So first of all, now, as I said, these aren't in any particular order, except I'm sort of trying to move around the 4 quadrants in a kind of way, and trying to end up with one of the trends which I'm going to expand on a bit more in this case study. So, first of all, spam will almost certainly increase. It's very likely and very undesirable. I don't think there'd be any arguments there. Okay. Now, linked to this is the possibility anyway, so it's slightly less likely, but still, you know, on this side of the middle, and certainly still in the undesirable quadrant, the total collapse of email as we know it now. And I know some people are going, that's basically what I use the internet for. How can that be a possibility? But the reason why I regard it as being a bit less undesirable, sorry to do a double negative there, than the increase of spam is because if email totally collapses, then other mechanisms for getting through to people, contacting people, particularly on a large, like the broadcast kind of thing, email, newsletters and so on, which people associate with spam sometimes, then these other mechanisms might actually have a chance of succeeding. Syndication, you may have heard of it as RSS. You know, people have RSS feeds in their browser. They can pull down a menu and see, oh, there's a new article on such and such a blog or something like that, and they'll get that. Podcasting is an example of an RSS feed. This has been around for a number of years. Has it caught on, the next big thing? Well, no. And part of the reason is because email is still around. And email is, well, we know what email is. You write an email, you put a whole lot of names in there, and you send it out. And, of course, you put an attachment on the email and you send it to 1,000 people. That's 1,000 attachments that are all going through that internet pipe. It's very, it's not a very good use of internet resources, but, well, it's easy, you know, we just do it and, you know, it's like people driving their four-wheel drive or something, you know, like, I bought it, okay, I've got it now, I can't just sort of leave it by the side of the road, I'll just have to keep using it. So, until it breaks down, and the NRMA, or, you know, the Automobile Club says, you know, this car ain't going anywhere, or this email system that you've had going for a while is not going to go anywhere else. Until that happens, then maybe syndication isn't really going to catch on. Advertising will probably increase. It's a model that a lot of online companies are using that decided doesn't really work, saying, okay, this stuff's free, this stuff's free, this stuff's free. Oh, gee, it's getting really popular. Okay, now we're going to start charging. Anybody here ever been on, I think it was called School Friends? It's, you know, one of those Friends Reunited kind of sites. That was originally free, and then they said, oh, this is good, okay, now we need to start making money. That's fair enough, but people just started dropping it like hotcakes, you know. Well, it was fine, it was free. But so advertising, you know, the idea of that is, well, we'll support it by the amount of advertising. Local newspapers use that model. So you know, you get your free local newspaper, and page after page after page is, you know, advertisements. Oh, look, there's an article at the top right-hand corner, you know, and that tends to be the case with the internet a lot. Now, linked to this, perhaps I should have drawn a line there as well, is that there'll be more, I reckon, more smart commercial links along the line of Amazon. You know, you buy something and they say, people that bought this also bought this as well. You might be interested in such and such. So it's more targeted, it's smarter. And you go a little bit too far and it, of course, feels very creepy. You know, what's going on here? How did you know that? But done sensitively, it can actually quite work. If not intrusive, then it's possibly helpful. Social media. So we're sort of starting in the more likely thing, and I've got it as desirable, only just a little bit desirable, but you might argue with that. Maybe, in fact, next time I do this talk, I might bump it up a little bit. Social media, also called social networking. If you're wondering what I mean by that, I mean Facebook, MySpace, and so on. Now, the creators of Facebook decided a few years ago, maybe a year ago, that organisations could have Facebook pages, not just individual people. And so the Art Gallery of New South Wales, like a number of other cultural institutions, decided to create a Facebook page. And it's one easy way that museums and galleries can use the social media phenomenon. Attract fans, publish event notices, upload photos and videos. Fans can also upload photos and comments and so on. Now, it's not going to replace email newsletters. Currently, we have about 250 fans. Actually, I think it's probably gone up a bit more, probably hitting about 300 now and counting. So that's not that big compared to over 100,000 subscribers to our monthly Art Mail e-newsletter. But it's a different phenomenon. It's an experiment. It doesn't cost anything except a bit of time. And I think there needs to be probably a bit more of that going on in our big institutions, just sort of, well, what will happen if we do this? Kind of like a sandbox. Okay, so moving on. 3D online worlds may become more pervasive, as in Second Life, or the hype for Second Life. And you saw a screen grab, or I think actually a few screen grabs so far this afternoon of Second Life. Here's something not from Second Life, but it's one example of a virtual reality museum, or somebody's idea of a virtual reality museum. I want you to look at that and tell me, what is it about this virtual art museum that's different to a real art museum? Well, in fact, we're we're in one right now, so it shouldn't be too hard. What do you notice? What's this on the right here? Huge shadow. Now, if you had a lighting person in your art museum that cast shadows like this, you'd be out the door, you know. I mean, you don't do that. But, you know, in a virtual 3D world, I've got this great bit of technology that casts these amazing shadows. I mean, how are people going to know that your software can do that unless you actually do it? And the perspective is also a bit exaggerated, so it really seems to tunnel back into space, because after all, you know, he, probably a he, maybe a she, is wanting you to, hey, get this is 3D. Wow, man. Okay. Here's another example, but in fact this is based on real life. So this is from the Art Express exhibition of high school certificate major works that we do every year at the gallery. This is the one from 2007. And let's cross our fingers and hope that this works. Oh, it just disappeared. That's interesting. Right again. Okay, this isn't actually my computer, but what's supposed to happen is, and you can go onto our website, or the Art Express website, insideartexpress.com.au, you can actually move through this real exhibition. Now, you've probably seen things like that before in other art museum sites. This one's a bit different in that you don't have to keep going back to the map to say, okay, now take me to the next room. You can actually move to the next room by clicking the arrow, and you sort of transport yourself through into the back part of the room or something. And also when you click on an artwork, then in another window you actually get a close-up of that work rather than having to sort of peer at the computer to see it. And of course then you can get the label and so on. Now, I call this a virtual walkthrough, not a virtual tour, because you're actually in charge. However, in this 2007 exhibition site, there's also a series of curators' talks as MP3 files, which you can play as you're moving through. So he says, you know, now go into the back room, and you actually move yourself through the back room. Or you can decide to ignore what he says and just stay in the first room while he chats on and takes the rest of the group, which is kind of like real life. Okay, so that was 3D worlds. Okay, now into the somewhat less likely, possibly, quadrant, but undesirable. Non-standard navigation increases. Over the last 5 years, I've noticed a number of websites with amazing and tricky interfaces. Usually, I reckon it's a web design company showing off. And as a result, they use navigation that is non-standard. For example, this is Culture Victoria. Anybody who's seen this site? I had a look at the attendees list and noticed there was no one from Victoria, so I hope I'm pretty safe that no one here actually designed this site. The URL, that's the address at the top, stays the same for all pages. So no matter how, where you click through and so on, it stays the same. So when you do your bookmark, it only ever takes you back to the home page. So that's hopeless for a start. No one can deep link, so you can't have another website saying, have a look at this stuff about whatever, because they do the link, it's going to go to the home page again. Non-standard scrolling. See that there and that there? That's how you scroll. Okay. I doubt whether there'd be many people that would actually discover that quickly and work out that that's what they can do there. It means also that a scroll wheel on your mouse doesn't work, so you can't jump to the end. You can't grab the thumb. On a scroll bar, you can go right down to the bottom. You can't do that. You have to go. Very annoying. It's very slow loading and error producing. You may notice, I don't know whether you can see the status bar down here. It says completed 1,393 of 1,514 items with 7 errors. Small text, you can't enlarge text. You can go View text, make larger. It's on. You do this on this side. No good. Now, have a look at this next slide, because they do actually have under About Culture Victoria a thing about accessibility, and I'll read it for you. This website is a beta version and still under development. An accessibility assessment is being undertaken. If you'd like to register a need to access larger text as part of that assessment, please contact us. It's not so much an accessibility statement as an accessibility excuse. And for those geeks that know a bit of HTML, the entire website is one page. This is the source code. All the content is this bit here. It just says, put a flash thing in there, okay? And this is just a few scripts and so on. That's the whole thing for the whole site. Okay, so that's... I think I hopefully have established why I put that in the undesirable quadrant, but hopefully less likely. Hopefully the sites like that will become less popular and people won't go to them as much, and people go, oh, okay, it was kind of cool, but it's not going to be sustained. As I said, if something's hard to use, people use it less. Less users to a website, less successful website. I guess it's kind of like survival of the fittest. Here's something that I reckon would be desirable if it could happen, but it's probably not likely to happen, and that is copyright restrictions decrease. Actually, I think I kind of tempered myself a bit much. What I really mean is the end of copyright as we know it. But anyway, until that happens, this is the kind of thing we'll continue to see on museum and gallery websites. So, hey, I really like Brett Whiteley. Let's see what the Art Gallery of New South Wales has on Brett Whiteley. Image unavailable, image unavailable. I think we actually have one, maybe two works by him that for some reason the copyright approval has come through. And there's also a portrait of somebody Whiteley by William Pigeon, I think, and people get all excited. Oh, no, it's not it. Okay, so that's copyright restrictions. Open standards increase. This is kind of the other side to the non-standard navigation increases thing as well. Open standards means non-proprietary and therefore non-secret. Open standards also includes XML, which is called, which stands for Extensible Markup Language. Extensible Markup Language, a common data language for the web. JavaScript and the Document Object Model, which is a way to describe and control elements of a web page. And SQL, Standard Query Language, a database format and language for querying and manipulating data. So there's a few acronyms and so on there. But as I said, they're open standards. It's not like they're owned by a company and they hold the rights to it. So I think that's pretty exciting. Faster, cheaper bandwidth. Now, this is my attempt at a smear dot, because a prediction of slightly faster, cheaper bandwidth is pretty safe, but a prediction of bandwidth that is faster and cheaper again is a bit less likely. And a prediction of screaming fast, incredibly cheap bandwidth is, well, that's probably not going to happen. And of course, with faster, cheaper bandwidth, you'll be able to get more higher quality, rich content. People demand it, and hopefully they'll get it. Separation of content and presentation to increase. Content, I believe, will become increasingly separated from presentation. The easiest way to create a website is to put everything together. You put your content, your text formatting, image references, positioning of various elements into a collection of HTML files, one per page. But if you need to change the style, you can run into problems, especially if it's a large website. And here's a website that where the content isn't actually really important at all. It's all about the style, because it's to demonstrate this principle of the separation of style and content. It's called CSS Zen Garden. Don't worry about the word CSS. Well, it actually stands for Cascading Style Sheet. But anyway, so this is one way that it looks. This is exactly the same website, exactly the same content, but styled differently. In In fact, the people that created the site did it as a challenge. They said, okay, here's a site you provide the style, which is a separate file, and then it gets overlaid over the content, and it actually moves the text and so on in different places, makes it look entirely different. So there's another one. Same content, different styling, and here's 9 altogether. But there are literally hundreds of them. Okay. Then the semantic web. Some people call this Web 3.0 as opposed to Web 2.0, and I haven't even talked about Web 2.0. We'll get on to that. Semantic web is the exchange of data between various sources on the web, and that's made possible by the open standards, which we talked about before, and the separation of content and presentation, which I've also talked about. The most common manifestation is this thing called mashups. Now, this is a website, a demonstration website that relies on some data that's just in a boring old database of US presidents that lists where they were born, where they died, whether they died in office, what religion they belong to, what political parties, of course. And this actually shows you, by putting it onto Google Maps and timeline and so on, you can actually see that data in exciting, interesting anyway, different kinds of ways. There's just a few different views. And here's the tabular view, which is still probably more interesting than the original data, but that's just for those people that just want to see it all. Moving on, and more importantly, I reckon the semantic web should become easier for non-tech people. The lovely people at MIT have created this website which actually provides the tools for non-programmers to do stuff like that. That's very generous of them and kind of exciting. Visitor-generated content increases, also known as Web 2.0. Well, what is Web 2.0? Well, obviously it comes from this idea that the original web was version 1.0, and then about 10 years ago, 7 years ago, someone had this idea, well, it should move to the next phase. Web 2.0 is like, it's a version number of software. So Web 1.0 is where stuff is in the centre and it goes out to all the people looking at your website. Web 2.0 says, well, that can still happen, but people can put content back again, and then people can actually make connections with each other, which is that social media kind of thing as well. So Wikipedia is the world's most famous wiki, and a wiki is just an editable website by lots of different people, but it's actually just one of tens of thousands. Flickr, the biggest and most well-known photo sharing website, and Powerhouse Museum has recently started using a subset of Flickr called Flickr Commons as another avenue for publishing its collection online. Unfortunately, copyright restrictions would actually make this a lot trickier for an art museum. Why bother with visitor-generated content? I call it the virtuous circle of more content created by visitors leads to a larger audience, because participation and recognition are strong motivators. You have a larger audience, and that of course means that at least some of that larger audience is going to provide you with more content, and so it goes around. In May 2005, the Art Gallery of New South Wales launched its visitor-generated content project, My Virtual Gallery. It had no budget, no grand plan or anything. I just thought it would be a nice thing to do, and I just sort of scraped bits of money out of my ongoing budget and ended up with this. It probably would have happened a lot sooner had we had sponsorship and business plan and so on, but anyway, it got there. It's where you create your own online exhibition from our collection, and then you can view other people's exhibitions. So it has the following features. It has a registration login system, so it means that you can actually start an exhibition on one day, work a bit on the next day and the day after that, and so on, so you can actually build up a really good one. Whereas ones that are similar to this that I've seen in the past, basically, while you're on the computer, you have to finish it. When you leave it, you click save, and well, that's it, you can't edit it anymore. It has a number of walls on a closed loop, an intro text panel and text panels on other walls, and it has an approval process, which means not everything goes up automatically. but there's actually a good reason for that. I'm just going to run very quickly through. This is like a speeded up demonstration. It would be lovely if it actually works this fast in real life. Anyway, you click Create Your Own Exhibition. Then you log in, okay, and then you get this Edit Exhibition thing. And you click in the title, you type, in this case, water, and then you decide, well, I guess I should search for water. You click Go, and then it loads the thumbnails of works that have water in the title or something, and then you drag one down onto the wall, you write something in your introduction, you click Save, it tells you that it's been saved successfully. In your email inbox, you get this email telling you, well, thank you very much for creating that exhibition, and here's the URL so you can go back to it, and so you decide, yes, I would like to continue working on it. So you create a new wall, drag another image down, a text panel, type something in, make it bold if you want to, you save it, and then you move it into position. You can actually resize it, and then when you've finished it, I don't really think this exhibition is finished, you can click the submit button, and then that sends an email to someone, happens to be me at the moment, and then I say, well, this is good, or you misspelled this, or something like that, and we have this bit of an email conversation, and hopefully the exhibition will go live. But even if it doesn't, you can continue to look at it yourself, or you can tell your friends about it, but you have to give them your login and password. If you click View Exhibitions, then you get this search exhibitions page, and the default search is all public exhibitions sorted by date, time, last modified. You can also search for your own exhibitions, even if they're under construction. So this is the exhibition that I had just created in the view mode, so it obviously looks a lot simpler. And there's wall 2. Now you can roll over the caption, roll over the image to get the caption. So it says it's John Olsen, 5 Bells, 1963. And you can double click the image, click, click, and then this appears, which is from our normal collection database, to see the collection info. And you can also view the larger image to see the larger image. And selected exhibitions, if I think they're particularly outstanding, there's actually a featured exhibitions thing down there. I think it's actually a little bit too far down. A lot of people miss it, but it could actually end up being on there. For those people that are interested in the technical side of things, very quickly, 2 Flash applications. That's where the collection database is, and it has its own web interface, and this is our content management system, which controls both of these. So that's in a nutshell. Now, the problems that we encountered, and yes, we did encounter some problems, were certainly more than just technical. The project prompted lively debate amongst in-house curators, fellow educators and marketing people. One curator in particular regarded the idea of untrained people curating virtual exhibitions as pointless and trivialising, as though we were saying in effect that curating required no skill or understanding. Others only had a problem with exhibitions going live, that is, appearing on the website to everyone. And it raised 4 philosophical questions. Who has the right to make public statements about objects, and in this case, about art objects? Is there such a thing as a definitive, authoritative interpretation of an object? Do the reputations of artists or art need to be protected? And if so, is that part of a curator's job? And finally, should a museum or public gallery allow itself to be publicly criticised, or should it maintain the positive spin all the time? And I can't help thinking of the ABC's Media Watch program for the answer to that one. I think the ABC's standing, in my mind anyway, goes up every time they criticise one of their own programs, because it shows that they're a mature organisation. So the process of creating my virtual gallery made me realise that there's this kind of spectrum of opinion, which I've called, I think I've made these words up, authoritism and autonomism. So authoritism says, no, the curator, as in the real curator, is the authority, and only a professional curator should be allowed to do stuff like that. Autonomism, the other extreme, says, no, everyone's views are equally valid and everyone should be allowed to curate and interpret and whatever. My opinion is not at either of those extremes. It's in the middle, probably a little bit more to this side. Now, you might be wondering, what's the public's response been like? 81, in the 3+ years since the official launch, over 1,330 exhibitions have been created by non-staff. Obviously, staff do it as well. And 81% were never submitted. I think that's okay. You don't need to submit it. You can just do it and look at it yourself. That's fine. Of the remaining 19 that were submitted, 41% or 8% of the total were rejected with comments and never resubmitted. So I always say, you know, maybe if you do this, if you do that, and so on. And almost half say, oh, forget it, not interested. Well, fair enough. But 59% or 11% of the total are eventually approved, mostly with minor modifications. So there, when I did this slide anyway, there are 162 public exhibitions in total, including those by staff. And this is what I call the signal-to-noise ratio. Those people that are involved in sound, you know what signal-to-noise ratio is, right? It means if there's a lot of noise, then you can't hear the music or the person speaking very well. Okay, so this is Fine Art Museums of San Francisco's virtual gallery from a number of years ago, and this is their list of virtual exhibitions that people created. Space, 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 one paradise. People got the idea that these were in alphabetical order, so they gave the names to try and bring them up in the thing, but some of them didn't really give proper titles at all. This is the, well, it was anyway, the recent exhibitions a month or so ago. So I don't expect you to be able to see that. Completed or abandoned in less than 1 day, 90%. Okay. A brief introduction only, 75%. So it just mirrors the way that people interact with the web generally. Most people just sort of look and observe and so on. They don't actually participate actively. So I'm not particularly annoyed or disappointed by that. So that's basically it. And then just to show you all of it together, you can see why I sort of blurred some of them out as I went along. And I'm a good boy, I always believe in cleaning up after myself. And that's it. Thank you very much.
I actually have 2 questions. The first one is, have any of those virtual exhibitions ever been considered as a physical exhibition, and would that be a step the gallery would consider?
The head of curatorial, Tony Bond, is actually interested in that idea. He wants to get some museum studies students who are working as interns to use my virtual gallery as a tool for sandboxing some ideas for exhibitions and so on. It hasn't actually happened that way yet, but 2 curators have actually done it the opposite way. They've created these exhibitions and they've said, well, okay, the exhibition has to close eventually, but it would be kind of nice for it to continue to live on virtually. So they've actually gone to their notes and so on. They've pulled together, one is on Chinese printmaking and another one is on the art of Harold Casno.
That sort of brings me to my second question, which was in regard to the Biennale, where Gordon Bennett actually rehung your colonial gallery. Did you consider putting it on your My Virtual exhibition? Your virtual gallery? This is the one the Biennale just finished, yes. And he wanted to actually do it as a real thing, but he had to do these little models. At the moment, My Virtual Gallery can't actually flip artworks upside down, which is what he wanted to do. So, no, I haven't actually thought of doing that. But yes, that might be nice. There are lots of ideas that I've got for My Virtual Gallery. The main one being expanding it by going to different institutions. And I did actually ask the National Gallery and
one person said yes, he was very interested. He just had to check with his legal team, and that was the last I heard of it. So that goes back to my comment about copyright.
Okay, one more, Louise.
I'm just wondering, with the when people come to have a go, are there some really popular terms that people are wanting to curate exhibitions about? So I'm at the State Library at the moment, and one of the most searched terms of the collection is flood. The second one is floods, and the one after that is 1974. So they're telling us something. So I think by seeing how people use those tools that we have on the collection, it's also about how do you grow those collections, do interpretation around them, or so what are the public saying in curating their own exhibitions?
Well, it's been a bit skewed because, as well as individual people deciding, hey, this sounds like an interesting idea, we've also got a number of teachers and lecturers that have actually set it as an assignment for their students. So one year we had all these exhibitions where people tried to look for the word Aboriginal, which unfortunately most Aboriginal works in our collection don't have the word Aboriginal in the title, so it didn't really come up. There are a few, Aboriginal Heaven was one of them, but they got a few portraits of Aboriginal children, Arthur Murch and so on. And also University of Queensland was doing something on Australian identity, so there was lots of exhibitions about that. It was supposed to be for creating an exhibition that would be an inspiration for students doing Australian identity in various subjects, not just in art, but in society and its environment and whatever.